Okay, Chevra, we're going to get going, and we'll get started. So you see, I'm sitting here by myself today, but our co-Magid Shiur, Reb Shmuley Fuchs, is on Zoom in his own house. He's got a shtickle of a bad cold, and he's having mercy on me, so he doesn't give me his cold. So thank you for that.
Yeah, bear with me. I might turn my video on and off at different times. I'm trying to fight through this, but Mirza Hashem, it'll be okay.
I'm sure Mirza Hashem, it'll be amazing. So, so welcome everybody. A few announcements before we get going. First of all, tonight is Yud Tes Kislev, which is a very special day, and the holy Rebbe Chatzkel Zayantz wanted to make sure that we mention Yud Tes Kislev. Yud Tes Kislev is the yard site of the Mizritcher Magid. The Mizritcher Magid was the main Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov, and the one that all of the other famous Rebbes, all of the Talmidim, came through him, essentially. And he was really the one that took the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and really was like the next set of branches that spread out, came from him. He had all the famous Talmidim. And so he really brought the light of chassidus into the world, and the light of the Baal Shem Tov into the world, and which, of course, we're learning the Torah of Rabbi Nachman right now, which is one of those main branches. But it all came through the Mizritcher Magid. It's very likely that when, I haven't seen it written down anywhere, but Rabbi Nachman, of course, was the great-grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, and he was born in the house of the Baal Shem Tov. That's where his parents lived, right? So even after the Baal Shem Tov passed on, they didn't overlap. All of the tzaddikim would come through the house where Rabbi Nachman grew up in, the house of the Baal Shem Tov, right? And he would see all these tremendous tzaddikim. I'm not sure if there was an overlap with the Mizritcher Magid or not, but the Talmidim for sure were there, and Rabbi Nachman, interacted with them all. We would not. I don't know where my life would be. It's hard to say where it would be without the Baal Shem Tov and without the Mizritcher Magid, who spread his Torah, because it's impossible to imagine an existence without it. The world wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be here. The Mizritcher Magid had to be in existence to bring this light of chassidus into the world, that we should be able to take from it, and to enhance our lives and to become, more connected and live on a higher plane of existence. So it's important to know. And secondly, probably in most circles, it's more famous for the day that I believe the Altar Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. And everywhere around the world, in all Chabad houses, they're all saying Good Yontif. They celebrate this day to such an extent, it's totally amazing. And the Altar Rebbe of Chabad, some people call the Balatanya, some people call him the Altar Rebbe. The Altar Rebbe of Chabad is like, first of all, people should know that universally, his Sefer on Halacha, which is usually in the non-Chabad world, is called the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and in Chabad it's just called the Shulchan Aruch, right? It's universally accepted, and I mean, we don't always paskin just like that, but just like all of the other main halachic svarim, the whole world, it's all over the Mishnah Brura, all over Psak Halacha is the Psak of the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe, of course, wrote the Tanya, which is up there in the top mystical svarim, the top chassidish svarim that were ever written, right? So the Alter Rebbe, once again, is responsible for so much Torah in the revealed and the hidden Torah in the world to such a huge extent. And you don't have to look too far around the world to see the greatness of Chabad these days and what they do. So we have these two luminaries that are, I shouldn't say that today, actually, that's for a different day in Chabad lore. But you have these two fantastic reasons for Yud Tes Kislev that we have to make sure to mention. Second announcement. So we're starting a new campaign here in Breslov, Thornhill, and the campaign is the campaign. Don't have a perfect name for it yet, but it's 3 H's. 3 H's. The 3 H's are Hiskashrus, Hoidah, and Hispoidedus. These are 3 tools that basically I believe that is something that everybody needs at every time. Whenever we face challenges, These are the three main pieces of advice. Whenever we want to accomplish something, these are the three main pieces of advice. His kashrus is connecting to tzaddikim, to a tzaddik. Hoidah is gratitude, which we're going to see very strongly in this chapter. And his voidadus is, of course, talking to Hashem in your own language, which is really the thing that brings it all together and allows these incredible concepts to penetrate our heart and to become something that we live with. So we're going to be starting this campaign and getting the material out this week. So everybody should be thinking about these three H's. And we're mamash going to send it around the world. And Mirz Hashem, many people will get the message, and many people will grow from it and learn from it, and it'll be something that can help and bring a lot of light into the world. Especially coming into Hanukkah, which is Yemei Hoidah, days of gratitude. We have to start talking about gratitude. Okay, and everybody should also remember to check out the LPI Torah website and the Breslov Thornhill website and the Breslov Thornhill YouTube channel, and we should all stay connected, and mamish, we should accomplish a lot together. Okay, let's get going. Shmuel, you want to add anything before we get going?
Yeah, just one other announcement. So we put out on the group, I don't know if everyone here on the Zoom is on the group, we set up an email address if people want to write in questions or comments during the week as they're reading, maybe points that you'd like us to bring up during the shiur. We can't just promise to get to all of them, but we encourage anyone who wants to write in. It's bookclub@breslovthornhill.com. So everyone's encouraged to participate that way, or even better is live when we're here talking about the book. Amazing.
Okay, let's get into chapter 3, titled A Grave Error. I want to say that I think this chapter has some of the best writing from Rabbi Klein. Beautiful. So we're going to read some of that. So let's start off by reading the first, the portion of the story that this chapter is going on. Pam achas haya misvaed ima biyachad be'ezayim. On one occasion, when the king was together with her on a certain day. I just want to say the next line, by the way, Rabbi Weinberger says, is the most frightening line ever written in any sefer. The naisa beroigez aleha, he became angry with her. V'nizikra mipiv dibor, and a certain saying was thrown out of his mouth. Shehaloi toiv yikach leisach, that the no good one should take you. The king said to his daughter, the princess, Balayla halcha lechadra, and the nighttime she went to her room. Uvaboiker lo yadu heichani, and in the morning they didn't know where she was. Can I use that pen for a second? So this is so troubling, and at first, without reading the explanation of it, it seems like we can't imagine it. Well, the king is Hashem, right? And the princess, whether the princess is the Shechina, whether the princess is us, whatever it is, he said that the no good one should take you? That's us. How could it be? What's happening? It's so hard to understand. It's shocking, right? And Baruch Hashem will be able to see through the mashpiyim here and through the interpretations what we're talking about over here. So we have to say like this, and Shmuley, you can interject whenever you want. I know we're on our normal layout here, but you'll just interject whenever you want. So it started off that...
Well, I just want to just say, the first time I learned this story, which is probably about probably close to 20 years ago. You come to this part of it and you're just, it's baffling. You don't know what's going on. And it's bothersome, and it doesn't seem right, and it doesn't seem fair. And, never mind the part that, the king says the no good one should take her away, but it's like he became angry with her. But what did he become angry for?
Yeah.
It's totally not clear.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. And then the whole rest of the story that unfolds after this is pinned on this event.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
It's just totally, there's a real lack of clarity as to what's going on.
100%.
It's difficult.
So that's the question that we all have. Yeah. What happened? What happened? Right? Was epis. Funny words. So we saw that the king loved his daughter. He was more precious to her than the 6 sons. He loved spending time with her. And now this happens. What happened? So in order to begin to answer this, we have to look back to the original language in which this was written in. It was not written in English. It was not written in Hebrew. It was written in Yiddish. And not that the language is so particular in most of the story, but in this place, it changes everything. It changes everything. If we look in the to find this hint about what happened, if we look in the Hebrew, it says that one time he was together with her, be'ezeh yom, which you translate in, it's well translated here in English, on a certain day. A certain day. Be'ezeh yom. Right? But that's not what Rabbi Nachman said originally. Originally, he said, epes hatag. Epes hatag. It's a hard statement to translate. But epes hatag means it's not a specific day, it's not this day, it's epes hatag. Epes hatag. You can't even translate it. It means like any old day. Someday, any old day. Specifically not, it's the opposite of what the Hebrew says.
Exactly.
A day just like any other.
A day just like any other. Epes hatag.
But not certain. That's why I couldn't understand.
It's literally the opposite of the Hebrew translation.
Exactly.
Right? The Hebrew says a certain day.
It's not.
The English says a certain day. It's really the opposite of that. It's like any day, someday. Epes hatag. Right? You have to use that intonation when you say the Yiddish word, by the way. You can't say epes hatag. Epes hatag. That's how you have to say it in order to properly understand it, right? Epes hatag. So what does it mean? Oh, so this is one of the main ideas of this chapter. And there's a lot to say about it. Epes hatag is the problem. Epes hatag is the reason why the king got angry. Is the reason why what happened. Not that it just happened to be a specific day. It's because it was epes hatag, because it was just any old day. What does that mean? It means that it became, originally the king loved his daughter so much, and he spent time with her every day. And he delighted in this time. And it was precious and it was special. But you know what? To the princess, after time, it became epes hatag. It became just any old day.
No big deal.
Became the same thing over and over again. The same day. Well, it's just another day. I'm seeing my father. What? In other words, that preciousness was lost. That specialness was taken away. And so she began to think about every day that she had with her father as just epes hatag. Epes hatag. The king.
Can I ask a question?
Just 1 second. Generally, we try to keep questions to the end, if you don't mind, so we can, because we have a lot of people here. So, but keep on to it, and we'll get to it at the end. Yeah. So this is what happened over here, right? And the king loved this so much, loved his daughter so much that it was precious to him and important to him. So when she started behaving in a way that it was just another meeting with my father, right? The king couldn't be soivle. The king couldn't handle that. That upset the king, right? And so something happened. Let's stay on, before we get to what happened, let's stay on this concept of epes hatag, and let's see how it plays out in other aspects. So the next thing that Rabbi Klein talks about is how this comes down into Avoidance Hashem. One way to look at it, outside of Avoidance Hashem, is just, we're not appreciating in our lives the amazing nature of existence. You know, sometimes you go, if you're zoicha to go to mountains and look at the mountains, you can be blown away just about the fact that we live here and we get to see nature and that nature functions, right? You can be blown away by seeing things in nature, but we have the rest of our, when we're not on vacation, the rest of the 300 and whatever days a year are epes hatag days. I don't think about creation. I don't think about the amazing nature of the universe, right? And Avoidance Hashem is like this also. We have mitzvahs to do on a regular basis, right? We have to daven 3 times a day. We have to put on tefillin. Rabbi Klein says that, the first day a bar mitzvah boy puts on his tefillin, the first day a Baltruva puts on their tefillin, right, is something so precious to them. And it's so special. And that lasts for a little while. But you know what happens? It becomes epes hanachas tefillin. It becomes sometimes a chore. That's even worse, right? but even it could be just become just a daily routine. A daily routine, davening 3 times a day.
Exactly.
I was thinking the words were flashing in my mind because it happened earlier today when I was running out of time.
Right.
Oh, I have to go daven mincha. I have to go daven mincha? like it's a burden on me? Oh, I have to go daven mincha. What? You have to go and spend, 20 minutes
Right.
praying to Hashem, talking to Hashem? You have to? It's not supposed to be like that, right? It's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, you know what? I just got the opportunity that I get to take 10, 20 minutes away from my day, and I get to go and talk to the creator of everything. And I get to go have an intimate discussion, and I get to think, and I get to pause from everything. That's what it should be. And on higher levels, we will, as we grow, we'll get into Kabbalah, and we'll be like, I get to climb the Kabbalistic steps and get to this amazing place of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what I get to do. But unfortunately, after time, it becomes, I have to daven mincha. Right? It's not right. That is the situation that we're talking about here. That's not good. That's what the king saw in his daughter. That's what the king saw. So I want to just, I have this sefer from Rabbi Avram Kluger called Yichud HaShabbos. And there's a line in this sefer that anyone who comes to the shul has heard me say before, but it's a line that blew me away and still continues to blow me away. There's a custom by chassidim, Sfardim also, people who are more Kabbalistically inclined, to before we do any mitzvah, we say a l'shem yichud, right? Now this is really interesting, because when you pair it with the Lost Princess, it becomes very, very interesting. Because l'shem yichud, what we say is l'shem yichud kuchabrichu shechintei. I'm about to do this mitzvah for the purpose of uniting, making a yichud between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Shekhinah, which is really the king and the princess. That's what you're saying when you say l'shem yichud kuchabrichu shechintei, right? Before doing a mitzvah. And this custom that we have is before I do a mitzvah, I don't just do it. I stop and I say, wait a second. L'shem yichud kuchabrichu shechintei. You know what every one of us who's learning the Lost Princess should say? We should stop and we should say in English, I'm about to do this mitzvah to bring the princess back to the king. That's what we should say. I'm about to do this mitzvah because I want to be brought back to Hashem. I want to reunite the princess with the king. That's what we should be saying, right? And because every single mitzvah that we do is in essence, when we do it properly, is actually accomplishing this. Listen to what Rabbi Kluger says. Listen to this beautiful line. He says, L'shem yichud. When a Jew says a blessing, or tevas Torah tefillah, or a word of Torah or a prayer tefillah, v'chein ba'asoisoi mitzvah, or when he does any kind of mitzvah or any kind of spiritually related action or spiritual thing, what is that Jew doing? Me'id begalui, he is testifying openly, she'ein ha'olam kemarehu, that the world is not as it appears. Kemetzius atzmes zulas chiyus Hashem, is like that it's just some existence that exists without the light of Hashem in it, without the life-giving force of Hashem in it. When I say this and I am about to do a mitzvah, I'm saying no. There's something much deeper going on here. When I do this mitzvah, I'm bringing light into the world. I'm bringing elokus into the world. I'm connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm connecting kuchabrichu shechintei. I'm bringing the princess closer. That's really what we are doing every time we do a mitzvah. Miyachid kuchabrichu shechintei. And this is how we should be thinking all the time. This is the way the princess and the king were before Epheset Hag happened. Every moment, every mitzvah, everything's connected. Everything's with passion. Everything's with love and excitement. Right? And this is where we're supposed to be. So we have this minig. And if we use this minig properly, it's a tool to help us to not exist as Epheset Hag type of people, which we don't want to be. Right? So this is mind-blowing, the way that Rabbi Kluger says it is so special. But this is where we find ourselves. In the realm of Avoidance Hashem. We lose the excitement, we lose the connection, and I have to daven mincha. right? Nebuch. That's the way it becomes. So that's one aspect, as a way that we see episatogness, right? The regularity, of life making its way into our existence. So what else? Where else do we see this? Shmuley, you got anything to interject, by the way? Or should I keep going? It's hard to it's hard to figure out who goes next.
Yeah, I think you covered it. I mean, where else do we see this? I think this is probably where you're heading with this. But in our relationships, right?
There we go.
That's right. With our families, with our friends, it's very easy to take for granted what we have right in front of us, especially when it's right in front of us all the time.
Yeah,
right?
Mamish. So just imagine for a second, and try to remember when, if you're married, or if you desire to be married, if you were married, if you long to be married, just try to imagine or try to remember those moments early on in your relationship when you just longed to spend every moment with your partner, with your spouse, and those moments were so precious, and every minute of that relationship was so special and precious to you, right? And you'd be invited out places, and you'd say, no, I can't, I gotta go home. And it's in Jewish law, by the way, Jewish advice, let's say, that for Shana Rishona, the first year of marriage, a couple is supposed to stay together, not supposed to have so many guests. Why? Because that first year is supposed to be a time when they really, really connect on a deep level. They put it into Jewish practice that the beginning of marriage is powerful and is connective and is all this. There's passion and there's desire, tremendous passion, and it's for the person, for that relationship, right? So strong. And what do we see happens? Right? I know all of us in our hearts, we say, you know what? Yeah, but my wife, my spouse, my husband, whatever side we're on over here, I love them so much, and they're so important to me. But it's just so much episatog happens. There's so much going on. There's so much with the kids, and the shopping, and the groceries, and the cooking, and the violin, and the karate, and the swimming, and the everything, and the car needs to get, tires have to get changed for winter, and right, all this stuff has to happen. I'm not stressing anybody out, but don't forget to change your winter tires, everyone. We're in Canada over here. I know people in Israel don't have this problem, but right, don't forget to put on your winter tires. We got to do all this stuff, and there's so much, and then you got work and all your clients and all the schedules and everything. There's so much going on that we're lucky if we get 5 minutes to look at each other, our spouses, to look them in the eye and express any type of desire, any type of connection, any type of passion, right? We live in such an episatog world right now. We're so messed up. We're so busy. Did we say last week about the old times, about how they didn't have like technology and stuff?
No.
No, we didn't? Was that a different guy? That was Wednesday, I think. Was that Wednesday? It's probably Wednesday. So I like to say this sometimes. This is important also. If you think about the old days, like when Rabbi Nachman was writing this, when he was writing this, and he's writing it, right? So what did they have to do? To cook their food, to have a regular day, they had to go and draw water. If they were lucky, there was a well close by, or they had to go to a river. They had to carry water back to the house. Someone had to chop wood every day in order to be able to have the fire going and make the fire and light the fire. And there's no refrigerators. Like someone has to shecht meat regularly, and they just have to get when they can. And there's no store to go buy, lettuce from Eretz Yisrael. Like if you were in the Ukraine in the time when Rabbi Nachman wrote this, so you got potatoes and carrots and beets that you have in your cold room in the basement or in a hole in the ground, I don't know. And that's all you have for the whole year, for the whole winter. And he had to do all this work just to eat every single day. Right? So what do we have now? We have all this taken care of. You can go buy your food in 2 seconds. You got a refrigerator. You don't even have to go get it every day. You open the tap to get water. You flip a switch to make the fire go to cook. Everything is taken care of. We figured out how to make everything 1,000 times easier. And yet, I believe very strongly, we have way less time than they had back then.
Wow.
Way less time. Despite the fact that we've figured everything out, we're now more busy and more episatogi than ever has been in history. Right?
Yeah.
We don't have time to connect. So the passion of the princess is lost with our spouses. The passion of the princess gets lost even with our children, chas v'shalom, and with all of our relationships. Right? How often do we get to sit together and look into each other's eyes and talk about important things? I mean, Baruch Hashem, we all do quite a bit, but that's not normal. Right? So this is what we experience. So what happened?
So,
yeah.
Just on that point, you're talking about comparing how it used to be to how it is now. So I'm not sure I totally agree with that, and it's kind of tied to this whole thing of episatog, because I think everything is relative, and that we're all going to be conditioned to life as we know it. We're not going to relate to how it was in the 17 and 1800s because we weren't there. But if we were there, I assure you, I assure myself, I know about myself, I would find a way to be episatogi over there also, even with all the extra time and all that kind of stuff. And so that it's really related to something else I was thinking about is the system really, the way Hashem created everything, I think you have to say that it's built into creation and the way that Hashem did it, that this is a reality of something that happens, and it doesn't just happen to me and to you and to everybody. I think it's there by design. I think it's I don't like to use the word inevitability, but I think it serves a purpose, right? Because if we were just on fire all the time, like malachim, right, there would be something missing. Right. We wouldn't have that, and this is what Yaakov Klein goes into this, and the story goes into this. If you have too much of a good thing, besides it being it's not possible to be totally on fire about something if you have it all the time, right? If we were just hooked up to machines that were like, creating the chemicals in our brain that made us experience pleasure, there would come a point where we're not experiencing pleasure anymore. It would just be our regular existence at that point, right?
100%. I think you're absolutely right.
Anything, right?
But it's going to come up. We're going to see it coming soon. We'll have to circle back to this concept of it being by design, right? By design, that it's on purpose over here. But certainly what we see is that our avoida and our work is to go beyond that. Yeah, it's there. It's there. But we have to put everything we have into finding the princess in all these things. Right? This is our avoida. This is the avoida device, which we're going to get to. I still disagree, by the way. I agree with you. He wrote it back then. He wrote Episatog back then, for sure. I'm still going to say that it's stronger now, but
maybe
I'm wrong.
And you had plenty of uninspired Jews back then too, right? It was.
Yep. Okay, let's go.
Problem of just today.
Let's go weiter. So Rebbe Klein brings in another tool. We've had a few tools today. The first one is the L'Shem Yichud, done properly, right? The second tool that Rebbe Klein brings in this time is the tool. How can we break out of episatogkeit, of episatogness, of monotony? So one of the things he says is through gratitude, right? When we take the steps, this mamash is so powerful, and when you plug this into our 3 H's idea of his kashrus, we're doing his kashrus to a certain extent right now by connecting to the advice and Torah of Rabbi Nachman. And when we when we take this idea of hoidah, of gratitude, and we employ it in our lives, it is a huge game changer. I know people that it's totally changed their entire lives, right? One way you can imagine it. Let's go back to our spouse story, right? We get episatagi, and we get totally caught up in the world, and so we don't have those times. We don't have those times to think. What if today, tomorrow, you take out some time from your day, and you go talk to Hashem, davening, chassidus, and you say, you know what, Hashem, thank you so much for my spouse. Thank you so much for this wonderful wife you gave me. And then what if you start to talk about all of those things, the amazing qualities of your wife, of your husband, whoever it is? What if you started talking about Hashem? Wow, you know what? She's strong, and she's super organized, and she takes care of everybody, and she does chesed, and she gives tzedakah, and she runs the house. She makes sure everything's happening right, and she makes money for the house, and she's so loving, and all these things you could think about. And you said, thank you, Hashem, for that. How you could be filled with such a sense of gratitude that all of a sudden in your mind, there's no more episatog. In your mind at that moment, if you really say those words to Hashem and thank Hashem for this amazing spouse that you have, at that moment, you are on fire. You're with the princess. At that moment, you're so close to your spouse. And now what if you go after that? After having a session of Avoidance, talking to Hashem, gratitude. And what if you go and speak to your spouse after that and you look at them? They're going to see on your face that something's different. They're going to know right away. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a deeper connection that you didn't have for the last 9,000 days. Why? Because I woke myself up out of this slumber of episatog. And I thought for a second with gratitude for what I have. And I appreciated it. And now it's in my heart, it's in my soul, and I'm on fire. And now I no longer am episatog with my wife, with my spouse. And what if I do this with each one of my children? What if I do this with my job? What if I just say, wow, you know what? Okay, some things I don't like, but you know what? I have money, I'm feeding my family. I know people who don't have jobs, who can't feed their family. Thank. The next day I go to work and I'm like, okay, I'm here, and this is good for me. Just appreciating these little things. Gratitude is a tremendous antidote to episatogness, right? So important. He says here, I want to just read from Rabbi Klein here, far more than merely representing a positive trait. Gratitude is a wondrous key that unlocks deeper levels of quality, depth, and desire in all areas of life, immeasurably enhancing our relationships with others and the wondrous goodness that surrounds us at all times, even in the evening, morning, and the afternoon. This is something that gratitude does. So from here, we move on to the next step of this chapter, which is, when do we...
Can I just say
please.
About gratitude? There's one line here that really struck me and changed sort of a little bit of a perception change of what gratitude is. I always thought, gratitude is kind of something that you have to say, and that, you do it. It's a practice that you do. He says it a little different. He says, gratitude is a vessel that preserves in the present moment the very same levels of excitement, passion, and desire we felt towards something in the past. So it's almost like it's a tool. It's a tool that a person needs to have and acquire and know that they have at their disposal, and it has this power. That's
fantastic.
A really amazing thing.
That's fantastic.
Just one other thing I was thinking, about gratitude and becoming accustomed to having hoidah, thankfulness and gratitude at all times. There's nothing more episatogi. I don't know, are we running with this term, episatogi? There's nothing more episatogi than someone says, how you doing? What do you say?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Like, is there anything more thoughtless than just rattling out, Baruch Hashem? It's so So I don't know what the answer is to that. Maybe just like something simple, like changing up the way. I try to do this sometimes. I try to change the way I say it once in a while. I'll say, B'chazdei Hashem, or Baruch Havaya, or something like that. Just to not be the same. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Oh, you're sick as a dog, Baruch Hashem. You made $1 million, Baruch Hashem. You lost $1 million, also Baruch Hashem. Like, it can't just all, at the end of the day, we want to be thankful. And of course, we want to mean the words, but if we're just regurgitating it in
100%.
every instance, it loses its meaning and its power.
That's one possibility. The other possibility is by employing this advice. And so that when you're confronted with that, you say it and mean it. Just because of what you've been doing. If you work on the 3 H's, and every day you right, consciousness. Yeah. If every day you're connecting to these teachings, and you're being thankful, and you're expressing gratitude, and you're nailing it into yourself with his Avoidance, you know what's going to happen that very day when you walk into your house and your wife says and your husband says, "How was your day?" And you're going to look at them in the eye and you're going to say, "Oh my gosh, Baruch Hashem, my day was incredible," right? Or you're going to say, like I've said in the past sometimes, "Baruch Hashem, terrible." But I saw what happened, and certain things had to happen, and I saw that Hashem was doing it, and I know Hashem's doing something for me that I need. Okay, Baruch Hashem, right? So I think the work that we're trying to do over here with the princess and with everything we're doing is to be able to consciously live with it and be the person who says it, right? There's so much to say over here. Okay, we got to keep moving. We're taking a long time here. I don't know if we need 2 classes for this chapter, maybe. Okay, so what happened? What's the problem with gratitude, or the problem when we don't have gratitude? Is because the famous adage that people say, he says over here, the well-known maxim states, we don't know a good thing until it's gone. Or, as we all know, absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? When something's gone, then we realize, then we understand that there was something. Mm-hmm. There's something that I was missing. And now that it's gone, I realize that I can't believe I didn't appreciate it while it was here. Right? So it begins to talk about the Base of Mikdash. That the Base of Mikdash was destroyed. And really, I don't know if he says it over here, somewhere else. I don't know if it's Rabbi Ari Kaplan says this, that by the time that the Base of Mikdash was destroyed, right, it was nothing left. There was nothing left. All of the chius was taken out. It was just a shell of a building by the time it was destroyed. Right? Because we didn't appreciate what we had. It wasn't filled with our passion. It wasn't filled. He quotes Reb Shlomo Carlebach over here, who says, we went into exile because we stopped dreaming dreams about the Base of Mikdash while we had the Base of Mikdash. Mm-hmm. We weren't passionately in love with the Base of Mikdash when we had it. We weren't dreaming about it, right? And because of that, it was just there over and over again for hundreds of years, and the passion was lost. And so it was taken away. The Base of Mikdash is another aspect of the princess, right? So he says over here, the destruction of the Base of Mikdash was not the cause; it was the effect. It was the effect of the way that we were living, right? So we're going to ask now, what was the king doing? What happened over here? With all this in mind, what happened? So this is when he says that when the king said these words, "May the no good one take you," he was trying to, in the story, he was trying to shake up the princess a little bit and remind her something's not right. Something's missing right now. Maybe you need some time away from this regular everyday meeting in order to appreciate this relationship. Right? Interestingly, I don't know if I just came into my mind. There's one way where this happens with a parent and child. I'm sure we all experience it at some point. Have you ever had a situation where a young child is lost for any more than a few minutes?
Yeah, of course.
I did. I freaked out.
Right?
Yeah.
Just A few minutes, right? And imagine if it's longer. And you're driving around trying to figure out, you go and start going crazy. And then when you see that kid for the first time, right? Oh my gosh. It's like you never want to let go of them. You never want to let go of them, right?
Perfect. Exactly.
So, and this happens with everything, you appreciate something when it's gone. So the king wanted to wake her up a little bit and say, you know what? This is not working. And maybe you need to spend some time away to appreciate what you have over here. Right? So that's what he tried to do. However, what can happen? What's the danger that can happen at that point? Is that if we didn't already learn the Lost Princess, and we didn't prepare ourselves, Hashem is showing us distance. Hashem is making it appear as if He's not here with us. Things are difficult. I don't see blessing. I see challenge after challenge after challenge. And I feel like Hashem is far apart, is far away from me. And if I'm not really prepared for that, and really living in a way that I'm understanding every day what's going on, I can feel that distance is abandonment. Chas v'shalom. Right? And we know that this is a key concept of chassidus and Yiddishkeit, this concept of Bal Yidach Mimenu Nedach, that Hashem never, ever, ever pushes us away completely. Right? He brings down a quote from Rabbi Nachman in the second portion of Likutei Moran, in Torah Mem Ches, where he says over here, he says, Kisha Adam nichnas b'Avoidance Hashem, when a person comes into Avoidance Hashem, when a person really starts trying to live with Avoidance Hashem, to work to serve Hashem, to connect to Hashem, Azai haderech, then the way is, what happens? Shemarin lo hisrachakus, that he gets shown distance from Hashem. And it appears to that person as if from above they're pushing him away, they're making him distance. And they're not letting this person do the Avoidance Hashem that they really want to do. They're preventing them from doing this. But he says of MS. Well, let's get to what he says there. So, I think we mentioned this before also. Besides for the marriage honeymoon, there's a thing that they call the Baltruva Honeymoon. When someone first starts to become a Baltruva, like for a little while, everything is like rose-colored glasses. Everything's exciting and new and fantastic, and all these experiences are happening, and all this illumination is happening. But then at a certain point, Hashem says, okay, roll up your sleeves. Now we got to start the real work. Right? And all of a sudden, things get difficult, and we face challenges, and things aren't so simple. And we go through our first major challenge, our first major Yerida L'Tachlis Aliyah. Right? This is what happens. And this is exactly what Rabbi Nachman tells us over here, in precise words. But he says, he's very careful to say, Aval be'emes, uve'emes, kol ha'izrachakus, hu rak kulo hiskarvus. All this distance that we feel, it's not distance. It's only to bring us closer. The whole purpose of it all is to bring us closer. This is exactly what the king was trying to do. But the danger is, what can happen? Listen to this. Throughout the journey of life, there are times we feel as, this is by the way on page 70 at the bottom. Throughout the journey of life, there are times we feel as if Hashem has distanced us from His closeness, drowning in shame, guilt, and existential loneliness. We sense His absence from our lives and feel as if it is impossible to break past the obstacles that prevent us from reaching Him. Right? Our perception of Hashem's wrath overwhelms us. Persuaded that Hashem no longer desires our closeness, we convince ourselves that it is impossible for us to return, that the no good one has taken us, and Hashem is no longer interested in building a relationship. In other words, what can happen is we can feel that distance that is there to reinvigorate us and to help us to come closer, and we can mistake it, and we can just feel abandoned and imagine that Hashem doesn't want us anymore, even if it's probably subconsciously. And that just weighs on us, and it pulls us down. And we're going to see what happens. Just one more thing that he says. I want to quote again because his writing is so beautiful over here. The deepest secret of life is the understanding that all darkness is for the purpose of ensuing light. Constriction is only to bring about expansion. Night is the preparation for dawn. Mistakes are for the purpose of growth. And concealment is for the ultimate revelation. Right? This is what we have to have in our minds. This is what we have to think about. But we don't see this. Right? We can be pulled down, unfortunately.
There's a story from the Baal Shem Tov that I think illuminates this point very, very clearly. Baal Shem Tov says a story. Well, he said that a chassid once came and asked him. And he said, "Why is it that I can go from these periods in my life where I feel so high and I'm on fire and everything's amazing and I feel so close to Hashem and I'm accomplishing things, and specifically at those points I have this huge crash." And it feels like the floor is taken out from underneath me, and I'm in sadness, depression, but like I feel like everything was for naught. And like, why does it happen specifically at those times? And the Baal Shem Tov answered him with a mashal. He said, when a parent is teaching a baby to walk, what does he do? He or she, you take the baby by the hands, right, and you lead him along and you let him walk. And when the parent is doing this, and the baby hasn't figured out walking quite yet, but the baby's now experiencing this amazing new experience of walking, something they were never able to do before, right? And then as they're going, what does the parent have to do to get to the next step? The parent has to let go, right? And move away and encourage, to encourage the baby to learn how to do it on their own. So this is what happens, right? We get inspired. We have a really good period where we're going up levels. We're accomplishing things what we're supposed to do, right? And then all of a sudden it's gone, because Hashem was there with us, right? Especially the example you gave of the Baltruva engagement period.
Honeymoon.
Right? What?
Honeymoon.
Sorry. Same. Well, they're similar, really, right? The period of engagement and honeymoon, it's full of excitement and passion and joy. But anyways, we're so high and we're feeling so good about it, and then it gets ripped away. And it's for this reason that we're about to have a major breakthrough. We just have to sort of push ourselves through at this time when it seems all hope might be lost, or it's really hard.
So let's just go back to that last thing that Shmuley said, because it's a perfect transition to the thing before that, about the parable, the mashal of the parent teaching the kid to walk, and how the parent has to let go, right? Right at that moment, the parent withdraws, right? So page 73. I wanted you to see this in my book here, because you see, I highlighted it and I starred it and I pointed to it because it's such an awesome statement over here. To her room, not back to his. It says like this: unfortunately, we oftentimes misinterpret the true intent of Hashem's anger. Paralyzed by the darkness enveloping our spiritual clarity, we fail to realize that the shadow has been cast by Hashem's outstretched hand. What an incredible image. What an incredible visual way of seeing this. That the shadow that's being cast on us, the darkness that we feel, is because Hashem's hand is right there reaching out to us to pull us closer, right? This is what the king's plan was, and this is the mistake that happened, right? We have to be able to be ready to see that, to see all these things that happen as just our ability to get closer and our wake up and our opportunity to come closer to Hashem. But that's not what happens, right? So what happens? What happened with the daughter over here, with the princess, is that she went back to her room. The story says that after this happened, she went back to her room. Another detail that's super important. What should she have done? She should have gone straight to her father. She should have gone straight to the king and said, Tati, I want to be close to you. This is not good. I don't want to have distance from you, right? I want our relationship to be precious, right, in our language. But what did she do? She took that distance and she took it too much to heart, like we're saying over here. It weighed on her too much, and it drove her to isolation. Instead of going back to the king, she went into isolation. And she left the king. This is what happened. So she goes back to her room. And in her room, it becomes nighttime. This is an important thing that actually I'm not sure he addresses it over here. But in the story, it says, Ba'layla halcha lechadra. In the nighttime, she went to her room. The nighttime signifies, in all deeper Torah, when things are dark and I can't see clearly, things are difficult and painful and there's suffering and there's challenges that I don't get, right? That's darkness in deeper Torah. And it's in the nighttime that she goes back to her room. She goes to her room. She doesn't go back to the king. Right? So how does this relate to, he says something beautiful over here, that one more thing we'll read over here. In the understanding of going from children to adults and losing our childlike sense of wonder and passion and dreaming and all that, right? Listen to what he says over here. Page 75 at the top. As children exploring the strange new realities of adolescence, we make mistakes and feel for the first time a shattering of our innocence and the accompanying pain of Hashem's sudden distance. As we grow up, things happen to us. We do things that are not good. We make mistakes. And we get caught. And we get embarrassed. And we feel shame. And every time that happens, we withdraw a little bit. We withdraw from that childlike innocence that we had and that purity that we had. Somewhere along the way, a classmate whispers something on the bus. We look somewhere we shouldn't. And a flare of rebellion lights in our heart, launching a mighty assault on our sense of identity as mommy's sweet little boy or daddy's precious little girl. Immediately, despair begins to creep in. We feel alone in our shame, convinced that nothing could ever be built on the rubble of our destruction. So this is what happens. We start to feel, after all these experiences, a little more distance, and a little more distance, and a little more distance. And then we start to look at ourselves and see ourselves as, like he says, I can't build anything on top of this. I have such low self-esteem, right? Which is, of course, something that Rabbi Nachman talks a lot about over here. And from that place, I just withdraw. He says, one more thing at the bottom of 75 here, and this will just drive us towards the completion over here. So, another thing that happens is, we go through this, and we experience these falls. And then we see what happens the next day. The sun comes up again. And we start another day. And we start to sort of realize, maybe subconsciously, like, nothing's changing. Am I going to get out of this? Or is this just it? Is this it? That's what we say. Is this how this is all it's going to be? Just day after day, he's going back to Epes HaTag. Another sunset, another sunrise, in my midos, in my character traits, in my struggles, and just every day. Is that what happens? Right? So this is what happened in the nighttime. In the nighttime, she felt so dark, and she felt distance from her father, from the king. And so she went back to her room. And in the morning, no one knew where she was. In the morning, she was gone. So what happened? She withdrew. She went away from the king. She felt terrible. She felt low self-esteem. She felt all these negative things. And then in the morning already, it was like, oh, I guess this is it.
That's where the Yetzirah is so strong.
Yeah.
In the night.
In the nighttime, exactly.
Right, like that's an important point.
So what he's saying over here that's so crazy is that in the morning, no one knew where she was. It's just realizing that it's the same thing now. This is it. This is all I'm going to be. It's saying this is all I'm going to be. Am I just this person who did this Aveira? Who did this sin? Am I just this person who didn't make the cut? Am I this person who did something mean and got caught and now I'm embarrassed? This is just the morning. It's going to be another day, another morning, over and over again. I'm gone. I'm gone. And as he says to finish off here, when this happens, the irony is, the difficulty is that is the place from which the no good one can really take you. By going into this pattern of thinking and this pattern of action and spiritual existence, the thing that the king said to try and wake you up, now it could really come true. When we allow ourselves to retreat, to isolate from Hashem, to go out of Torah and mitzvahs, and to think of ourselves in a negative way, to look at ourselves as lowly, and see our bad qualities, and have low self-esteem, right? And to not have hope, and to become in a state of yiush, chas v'shalom, right? Now, I'm directing myself in. I'm pushing myself to live in the realm of the no good. And now everything's no good. And now I'm not going to see the good in anything. I'm not going to strive for good. I'm not going to strive for greatness. I'm not going to be living looking for the princess anymore. As we're going to see later on, does the princess even know that she's lost? Right? It's totally amazing. So just to finish off here, page 77, right before the end, Rabbi Klein leaves us with something a little bit positive. He says, but Rabbi Nachman teaches us there is a way out of this terrible darkness. Deep down, every Jewish soul yearns for the lost princess of youth, and she yearns for home in the same measure. She is waiting, ever waiting for redemption, and each and every one of us has the ability to free the princess from her bonds and bring her back home. So, as we finish this chapter and we open this up for discussion, let's just point out that we're still in the stage of developing understanding and awareness of existence, of what life is all about, of what history is all about and creation is all about, right? And we're understanding what the problem can be. We haven't really explained. We've given a few tools on how to deal with these things, but we haven't got to the rest yet. So with this in mind, I want to ask Shmuley has anything else to add, and then we can open this up for discussion if anyone has anything to say regarding these the points that we went through today. And this, I think, is one of my favorite chapters. Totally amazing chapter. The floor is open.
So just before, one thing that stands out to me, reminds me of a story. Actually, I see here he does say, this process that you just described when you were reading from page 75, when we become disillusioned, right, and we feel that we're not good enough and we're not what we were supposed to be. This whole process, what happens in this chapter very strongly echoes the story of Adam Arishon in Gan Eden, which we know is really also the story of our lives, and everybody's going to go through that process at some point, right? When Adam Arishon commits the sin of eating from the Eitz Hadas, what does he do? He does exactly what the princess does. He goes and he hides, right? As if you could hide from Hashem. He goes and he hides, right? So it reminds me of a story. I think I heard it from Rav Weinberger. He gives, an example of two situations and how perspective really is everything. He gives the example of Adam Arishon on one hand, who's literally in Gan Eden, basking in the light of Hashem and all the wonders that were there, and he has this moment where Hashem is where he's feeling some distance between himself and Hashem, and he's just totally broken and crushed over it, right? And he contrasts that to a story. It's a real story. I don't know who it happened to, but in the concentration camps, there's many stories that are exactly like this. In the concentration camps, there was a group of Jews that worked for months to figure out different things, different ways to find a little bit of oil so that they could light one Hanukkah candle, right, on Hanukkah, in the midst of the biggest horrors that we could possibly imagine, worse than we can imagine. And they managed to find a little bit of oil to light Hanukkah candles, and their souls are on fire. They couldn't be happier. They're in literally the worst possible place on earth, possibly the worst situation you could find yourself throughout history, and they're on fire because they experienced this richuk, this distancing, this process of having distance between you and Hashem, this process of going into the darkest of the dark, and they were able to find a little bit of light, right? And that lifted them up. versus Adam Arishon, who still had a lot, right? He still could have, should have, he should have done what the princess also should have done, right? This is his story too. He should have run back to Hashem instead of hiding.
What a fantastic story.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, that's pretty awesome because we're coming up to Hanukkah. And that story came out. There's major Hanukkah themes over here. The theme of Haidah, of gratitude and thankfulness, which is one of the main themes of Hanukkah. And this theme of like not losing hope and fighting for purity and for light when that's taken away. Right? Imagine, I mean, we can't imagine, it's not part of history, but it's not part of existence, but imagine if the Chashmonaim didn't do anything. It's like, I guess Hashem doesn't like us anymore. And they just went about their way and became, Hellenized. So the reason why the Chachamim made it into a holiday for us, and the reason why it plays such an important role to us, is because it's telling this story. It's saying the same story. It's in those times when we feel the distance and when we're separated, that's when we got to go and find the light. And we got to make sure to remember that we have to go towards the king as opposed to going away from the king and retreating.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, I see Leah has something to say from Yerushalayim. What do you got for us, Leah? You're up late. Is a baby awake?
No, I woke up early. I'm not up late. I'm already slept now. So. I just wanted to comment on this chapter.
Yeah.
That I find it so validating because so many times we find ourselves in that place, and to know that it's so normal and this is part of a life. I think also because our lives are so six sense orientated, and we kind of always focused on the achievement and the success and that materialistic kind of aspect of the physical world. And then when we find ourselves in that place where everything is like just taken for granted and it's just another day, it's very normal. And to me, it just gave me so much strength to kind of stop myself in my tracks and kind of and remind myself, what am I doing here actually? And to bring that princess back and realize that, that there's so much more. We don't have to get lost in this kind of the six suns. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Thank you, Leah.
I can just give one example. I don't know if it's running out of time or...
No. Go ahead, yeah.
I was busy preparing for Shabbos on last week, and I was a little bit behind schedule. I had a busy week, so I Friday woke up late and I had a lot more to do than usual. And I was rushing around in the kitchen between frying and peeling vegetables and everything else. And as I was throwing the vegetables in the soup, and I said Lakavad Shabbos, so suddenly I said Shabbos, and then I suddenly reminded, what am I actually doing here? And I really felt like the story and the book, and the more we speak about it, it really brings something out. And as I said Shabbos, I realized, wait a second, I'm preparing for Shabbos. What a schus, what an opportunity that I can bring Hashem into my kitchen, into my dishes, into making the table. And I really managed to stop and really kind of take that moment. And that was a moment which for me it was like a really big thing, because this is really what we're all yearning to do. We're trying to bring, the princess back into our lives, into the mundane, the so-called mundane activities. And it's just beautiful to see that in the middle of doing everything, it actually comes through. The more we speak about it and internalize these ideas, it really suddenly something awakens, and we feel that flame sparking and dancing and trying to get back, and cleave into Hashem.
That is fantastic. That Leah is a perfect example of this thing that we said from Rav Kluger. That by saying Lakavad Shabbos and doing it at that moment, you were just openly testifying that the world is not what it appears to be. The world is not just the six suns, right? The world is not just a world of technicalities. I am making Shabbos, right? And of course, Shabbos is Malchus, and Shabbos is the princess, and attaching it to that at that moment with that directed, conscious kavana, you brought the princess in there. Totally amazing. Great. Okay. Anybody else? We'll wrap it up. You got a comment?
A quick comment about this story,
Yosef Feivel.
which I found to be very powerful, is that when things happen that we're not happy about, I sometimes say, Hashem, how can you do that? And I get upset. And I find it's a struggle. And why is this happening? What did I do? Why am I being treated this way? And the story taught me a very important lesson. I'm trying to internalize it, is that I've often heard that Hashem does everything for our good and it's for your good, but I could not really understand it. But the story is helping me understand it, and it's the story, just the Chorban. I mean, we were in a situation where we weren't even appreciating what we had, what benefit were we even getting out of it, so to speak, and then it was taken away from us. But by it being taken away from us, I think Yaakov Klein says that it's not a punishment.
Right.
It's a tikkun. He's helping us, and that helped me get some kind of understanding that when things, I'm not there yet, not even close, but just an inkling to where it's not just saying it's for our good, but almost starting to understand how it's for our good.
Right. I mean, I think if we could articulate it this way, maybe, is that very often we're looking for a direct cause and effect reason why something's happening to me. One thing that this does, there sometimes are direct reasons for things. One thing that this does is it kind of gives you a general outlook that it's not necessarily about the details of what's happening, but the distance that these things are causing me. The fact that these things are causing me to feel distance from Hashem is on purpose, and it's trying to wake me up and trying to help me to come closer to Hashem. Right? Amazing. Okay, I think we got to cut it off here, folks. Everybody have an amazing week. There's a possibility, we have to see, we will post it on the group, but there's a possibility that we will not have a shiur next week because of Hanukkah and having to be with the family. Maybe, I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. Everybody have a totally amazing week, and homework will be, I guess, chapter 4. Yeah, Shmuley? Okay, everybody. Okay. Awesome stuff. Everybody have an amazing week. All the best.